I'm Maggie Williams, editor of Reward magazine. I'm here today with Jonathan Watsley, Director of Wealth at Work, to talk about retirement options. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Maggie.
So, Jonathan, with both pensions and the ageing workforce in the news at the moment, the choices that people make at retirement are becoming ever more important. What are some of the options that employees have at retirement?
Fundamentally, there are three options they have when they come to draw in income. There is annuities, which is probably the most common route and the route that people normally go down almost by default. There's drawdown, which is where you maintain control of your pension pot, your investment, and draw money from that as you wish, although there are some guidelines as to how much you can take throughout your retirement. And the third option is phased retirement, which is really taking small bits of income. You may carry on working at the same time to supplement that. And of course, from phased retirement, you can always go revert back into annuities or indeed drawdown at some point in the future.
And with those choices available, how can employers make sure that employees understand the choices available to them?
It certainly isn't just about pensions. I think what's happening now is that there's people that are increasingly coming up to retirement that will have a number of pension pots and indeed may have a combination of pension pots, may have final salary, may have defined contribution as well. But of course they may have many other assets which in their own minds they've earmarked for retirement in some way. Now that may be things such as shares that they may have had through their employer, and certainly we work with a lot of companies where employees have built up what actually might have been quite modest sums of money through Save As You Earn schemes, for example, over a number of years, but actually now, relative to their overall wealth, that actually accounts for quite a chunk. There will also be people that would have done things like buy-to-lets, which again, they will say, well, that's actually for my retirement, and whether that's because they're going to keep those to generate income through the rental, or whether actually they're going to sell those properties and then use the capital and invest that to generate some income. So there's quite a broad range of things out there. So the really important thing is to understand actually how that's all going to be calibrated, all those investments can be calibrated to provide the income that you want as an individual.
So we've talked about what employers can do to help, but are regulators doing enough to support employees as well?
Probably not. They're trying to do more. So for example, there's the ABI Code of Conduct, which is coming in the next few weeks, which will do things such as tell pension providers that they cannot send out application forms for their annuity with their retirement packs. So this should certainly help people to understand that they do need to shop around and actually hopefully that there is a better deal out there for them. Also, I think there's the FSA review that was announced into the annuity market a number of weeks ago may also help. But I think there's also other things that really are not on the table yet that might help. So things like, why do the government not consider tax relief, for example, for advice at the point of retirement? Because actually if people got better advice, they got higher incomes, ultimately they may be less reliant on the state, so there could actually be a benefit for them there as well. So whilst some steps have been taken, probably not enough at this stage.
So is retirement income just about pensions though, or are there other options to consider as well, and how many of those can you actually take into account in the workplace?
This is one of the biggest issues really, is that we're now entering a period where there's the baby boomers that are coming up to retirement. So in a lot of companies it is not uncommon to see actually quite a large chunk of their workforce who will come up to retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. We're certainly working with organisations that may have 30% of their people coming up to retirement or potential retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. But they don't actually understand what those options are. So one of the key aspects is to try and get that understanding, try and get those employees to understand what are the options that are available, but then also what are the pros and cons of each of those options. So really they can make an informed choice as to what may be appropriate for them.
So what are the risks associated with retirement options from the employee's perspective?
The biggest risk is they don't generate the level of income that perhaps they could have done. Lots of different companies will have done research in this area, but it's not uncommon to see numbers of 20, 30, even 40% enhancement on income for a lot of people if they make the right decision. So that may be filling out, for example, medical questionnaires if they're applying for annuity, and making sure that they're maximising the level of income. Also, it's important to make sure that they are making fundamentally the right decision. So it may be that annuities are not right for them, but if they've gone into an annuity, then they will fundamentally be stuck with that for the rest of their lives, literally to the day they die. So they make a bad decision. That's a bad decision that may stay with them for 25 years or more.
And what about risks to the employer?
I think with the baby boomers, with companies now increasingly having people that are getting older, not uncommon to see companies with maybe 20, 30, 40% of their employees getting up to retirement age. So it's important that they inform their staff as to what the options are at retirement. Now clearly they might need to bring in organisations from outside like ourselves to help with that, but it's really important. Otherwise people often will not believe they have enough income to retire. I think the other point there as well to note is pension is the biggest benefit that most companies offer, and so there is something slightly bizarre in the sense that somebody may pay into a pension for 40 years, but at the point they come to take the benefit, they want to generate income from it, actually they're abandoned and they're not given perhaps the education and advice that they need.
So with so many choices available, the role of advice becomes really important as well. And we saw some really substantial changes to that at the end of last year with the introduction of the Retail Distribution Review. What role do you think regulated advice now has in the retirement options process?
I think it's really important. I think it's more important now than it's ever been, and it's partly for the reasons we discussed earlier, which is more and more people are coming out of the workplace with a number of pensions, maybe a combination of final salary and DC, but they also often have other assets as well that need to be reviewed. So because it's such an important decision, and because it's a decision that may need to last you for the next 25 years, it's important that you do get advice and that you do absolutely get that decision right. So even though RDR has resulted in advisors going fee-based in the main, then I would argue that whilst clearly they should shop around to find the right advisor, that actually paying that fee may actually be a small price to pay ultimately for what is a lifetime decision on actually a very big value often relative to an individual's overall wealth.
Many thanks for your time today, Jonathan, and for some great insights into retirement options.
Thank you, Maggie.